And Director Wilson.
Here.
All right, looks like we're all here. All right, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the HWMA board and will be enacted upon one motion unless a specific request for review is made by a board member or a member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless pulled for discussion. So all we have is to approve the minutes from August 10th, 2023. Anybody want to pull it or make a motion?
I move to approve consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by Director Jones and a second by Director Castellano. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Passes. It's time for oral and written communication. This time is provided for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on this agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any request that requires the board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allotted for the silent item and on the time permitted to each individual speaker. Do we have anybody that wants to make public comment? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close oral and written communication. All right, and the next on the agenda, number 4, is to review and approve recommendation to award transportation and organics processing services to Cold Creek Compost. Can we get a staff update?
Thank you, Chair. We've got a brief presentation, and as the staff report lays out, I'll be passing on the evaluation committee's recommendation for the organics transportation and processing. So as a quick reminder, I wanted to briefly touch on the current timeline for organics processing. We are currently in the process of step 4. If the board chooses to move forward this evening with awarding the RFP, staff anticipates this will greatly assist the jurisdictions in negotiating with their current franchise haulers. This will solidify the processing aspect and give everyone a better understanding of how the material stream will flow throughout the county. Staff intends to bring back a contract before the board at their January 2024 board meeting for final approval. And once approved, HWMA can begin to develop new waste management rates, which will be incorporated into jurisdiction franchise rates. This will finally allow HWMA to approve and adopt organics processing fees for fiscal year 24-25. HWMA received 2 proposals by the deadline, one from Cold Creek Compost located in Ukiah, California, the other from Ecology Ostrom Road in Wheatland, California. Both proposals were deemed responsive by the evaluation committee. The committee evaluated the 2 proposals and then developed questions for a round of interviews with both proposers. As you can see, the ranking was unanimous from the committee, with Cold Creek Compost being ranked as the best proposal by each scorer within the committee. Here you'll see a comparison of some of the key aspects of the 2 facilities. Obviously, the initial item is the cost per ton, not only of source-separated food waste, and additionally, the cost per ton of mixed organics. This number that you see is inclusive of processing and transportation. You will note there's a substantial difference in the 2 proposers' costs. A large portion of that can be attributed to the physical distance from the Hawthorne Street transfer station. Cold Creek Compost is around 150 miles from Eureka, while Ostrom Road is just over 250 miles one way. That additional mileage significantly impacts the rates that you see before you. Depending on material, you will see a gap in costs ranging from $80 to $100 per ton between the 2 proposals. Next, we have the facility capacities. At this time, HWMA anticipates sending between 2 to 4 trailers per week, with no more than 1 trailer per any individual day. Depending on rollout of collection and tonnage received, our tonnage will have minimal impact on either facility's daily acceptance capacity. But one area of note that we will touch on a little later is while Ecology Ostrom did not give a cap on available annual tonnage, Cold Creek Compost does. Their current cap of 5,600 tons of annual capacity through the life of this contract. One area the committee called out was the anticipated recovery rate. While these percentages can vary based on the quality of material delivered, Cold Creek Compost does have a higher anticipated recovery rate for the authority's material. Additionally, both facilities noted they are currently either in the process of or in the planning and permitting stages of expanding their facilities and increasing their annual tonnages. There are a couple key factors I want to touch on for the board's consideration this evening. First is the previously mentioned potential cap on tonnage that can be delivered to Cold Creek Compost. During the drafting of the request proposal, staff worked with jurisdiction staff and their franchise haulers to develop the anticipated tonnages. We also incorporated information from HWMA's pilot project in 2011 and the waste characterization study that we took place in 2018. But at this time, we do not know the level of participation or adoptions jurisdictions, businesses, or residents will have for these programs. Staff will be working with Cold Creek to determine if there is a potential for additional capacity, and we will continue to assess other options on how to maximize tonnage throughout the contract life should it become necessary. With that said, it is still unlikely to be an issue during the first few years of adoption program. Next is the operational changes if the board chooses to award Cold Creek. At this time, Cold Creek will only accept raw food waste material. This means that the proposed and planned pre-processing unit will no longer be a part of the organics operations at the Hawthorne Street Transfer Station. This was a main discussion point for the committee, with pros being the potential cost savings realized from no longer needing a capital asset such as the pre-processing slurry unit, and the potential ease of use and collection for residents and businesses alike. The main concern from the committee is potential contamination rates within the waste stream and the additional staff time that may need to be allocated to address it. The final key item is fiscal impact. Unfortunately, at this time, staff cannot tell you the total impact this will have on the authority or its jurisdictions. Obviously, we've presented the total transportation and disposal costs here, but these are just a factor of the overall costs that your jurisdictions will see. But as noted earlier, if the board moves forward with the recommendation this evening, we'll begin to get a better idea of the waste stream as a whole and the ecosystem that we'll be building within county. With that, staff's recommendation is that the board award the transportation and organics processing services to Cold Creek Compost, direct the executive director and general counsel to initiate negotiations for a 3-year agreement with Cold Creek Compost for transportation and processing of organic waste, and to return to the board for final agreement review and approval no later than January 11th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Open up for questions. Go ahead.
Right.
When you say they'll only accept organic food waste,
Cold Creek Compost will only accept raw food waste, so they will not accept pre-processed slurry material.
but if we understood we were going to probably try to have to mix green waste with, will they get all that green waste go to them too? Will that green waste go to them as well?
So that is to be determined. When the original RFP was written, it was written very specifically. It had broad characteristics of it, but it was written as if we had already determined we were going to go with a pre-processing unit. Cold Creek Compost, through an addendum to the RFP, requested if they could put in a proposal, but they would not require the pre-processing unit. So through the addendum process of this RFP, we responded that yes, that would be acceptable. What that means is it opens up the possibility for our collection now to be completely different than what we had anticipated. So the original anticipation was the pre-processing unit can't take green waste, large woody debris. So we would try and keep that material in county to reduce costs. And 2, we did not have something in county that could handle green waste and incidental residential food waste. So we had planned to roll out commercial because that was going to go through the pre-processing unit first. We no longer have to roll out commercial and then self-haul and then residential. I will say I'm going to work with the jurisdictions. I'm going to work with Cold Creek. There is still that cap. So there is a potential that we still want to do our best to keep green waste material in county. And so we would still want to roll out commercial routes first. But that's to be determined at this time. This awarding it to Cold Creek gives us the option that we no longer need the pre-processing unit. So one, we can take that cost savings and put it somewhere else for some of those items. And two, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. We're not as rigid anymore in how we can implement or roll out our collection programs. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? So this is going to make it easier for us, but at the end of the day, we're still driving stuff to Ukiah, right?
If you go forward with awarding it, yes, food waste material will be going to Ukiah for 3 years. There are potentially 2 one-year extensions in this contract, so it will be up to 5 years that food waste material could be going out of county. I will say that if someone started today, it would be very unlikely that they would be able to permit a facility that would be able to handle our food waste material volume in that 3-year window. That's currently not feasible really in most of the county and in most areas and most businesses I've talked to as well. So yeah, for 3 years, we will be sending our food waste material out of county. That's correct.
What were we going to pay for that pre-processor thing?
$890,000, give or take. And that's just the processing unit alone. That's not the upkeep. That's not the staffing, the training, electrical changes to the facility that we'd need to make sure that that thing worked. All full boat, it was around $1.1 million by the time we were done.
So this is a pretty significant cost savings.
Yep. Obviously, one of the largest concerns the commission or the committee had was diversion of the material, and then obviously material that's not supposed to be in there, and how are we going to get that out now? 2011, that's exactly what we did. We had a pilot project. We had raw food waste dumped on the floor, and we took material, non-organic material, out of the waste stream by hand. That's pretty much how we're going to do this. Obviously, staff's going to look at newer technologies, newer methods that have come up with hand sorting, things of that nature. But that is one of the main concerns, is the residual material in organics.
How is this going to affect just the regular people in their homes? Is this new method, is that going to change the way people are going to have to go about separating stuff?
It won't change how we had planned on rolling out residential. It can change when. This makes it easier for every jurisdiction to roll this out, because now we don't have to have an additional facility to take green waste and incidental food waste mix. In theory, it could go in with commercial food waste now and go to this location. So we could roll out programs sooner for residents, but the spirit of it would not change. That was always the plan, was to have green waste and residential food waste commingled. We weren't going to try and pull food waste out. So that aspect hasn't changed, but the timeline that we can implement that certainly has.
So if Nordic comes online and we have a massive amount of fish waste, I hope we're still looking at opportunities for grants or whatever to create a facility that can keep our organic waste local, mix it with the fish waste, and produce a fertilizer product, or do digesters or whatever makes sense in terms of not hauling it all away. But this is what we got to do right now. There's no other option. So I appreciate that. But as other sources come online, looking at opportunities, that would be nice if we could figure that out. But it's going to take significant investments and finding a site and all that stuff.
So the jurisdictions and NHWMA staff have already been having a little bit of these conversations. A lot of their efforts right now are focused on this process, getting compliant, trying to roll these things out so we have a better idea of not only what it's going to cost everyone, residents, jurisdictions, HWMA, but how much tonnage. What is the buy-in from your residents in your jurisdictions? What is the buy-in from your businesses? So we can get an idea about the actual generation. We did a best guess, really, is what you can call it, based off the 2011 study, some franchise hauler data, and the 2018 waste characterization study. But that's really what it is. It's a best guess. There's no guarantee that we're going to get that amount of material, even at 70% capture rate of what that material could be. So a lot of our effort has gone into this. I think this is the first step to finally ironing out this short-term process so that we can start turning our eyes to the long-term planning.
Great. Thank you.
All right, I'll open it up for public comment if anybody has any.
There's a hand up.
There is a hand up on the, oh God, I can't see. Frank Nelson?
There he is.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to thank Eric for the great presentation and say that it's great news that Cold Creek can take the material without going through pre-processing. And it's exciting to hear all of the forward progress that's happening in this meeting. So great job to everybody, and I'm excited to see where we go from here.
Thank you so much. Anybody else for a public comment? Wow, it's a cool effect. All right. Seeing none, go ahead.
Yeah, just similarly excited to get this going, and I do think that the 3-year period will give us time to really use that as a learning process. I do think, if possible, if we can keep our green waste in the county, that would be preferred, just in terms of saving on the cost of and energy consumption of transportation. But it's good to, I suppose, have that option if we can't, keep it in the county. I can make a motion to approve award transportation and organics processing services to Cold Creek Compost.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Director Castellano and a second by Director Madrone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Point of order. I think we need to have items 2 and 3 along with that. So would
Director
that be
Castellano, you can just say move for
Castellano
staff's recommendation
to-
if you'd like.
to include 2 and 3, or just
Yes.
move
sorry.
to the recommended action, because we do need those pieces left
Okay.
in.
Yes, I will include staff recommendation. Or is that enough, or do you want? Okay.
That's good.
All right. So the motion passes unanimously.
I'll vote yes then.
Awesome. Okay, well then let's move on to item 5. Just authorize chair to submit letter to the state governor's office expressing support for Little Hoover Commission Report 274, California's landfill methane emissions, SB 1383 implementation. Staff report.
Thank you, Chair. So at the August 10th, 2023 meeting, the board received a presentation regarding the Little Hoover Commission's report on SB 1383 implementation. At that port, this board spoke heavily about the agreement that they had with several of the recommendations, and then inquired about the efficacy and the ability to draft a letter showing this board's support. With help from the chair, that is what you see attached. I would say an alternative that was brought by jurisdiction staff is, instead of potentially sending this letter, altering the letter a little bit and having each jurisdiction approve and sign on to the letter as well. So there's a couple options that were brought up by jurisdiction staff as well. Every jurisdiction staff I've talked to is in full support of the letter, and they would be more than happy to be a part of this letter as well. So there's a couple different ways we can go about it. We can approve the letter tonight and send this, and then go to each jurisdiction, having them have a letter of support as well. We can alter this letter to have each jurisdiction sign on to the letter at the same time. That's going to take a decent amount of time. Or you can approve the letter as is tonight. We can send it, and then we can have the jurisdictions write a singular letter of support for our letter, in essence, basically signing on to it, but not delaying sending this to sending this off. So those are a couple options. I'd be more than happy to go over them or explain them, whatever the board's direction.
Yeah, I, for one, know that, reading this letter out loud at an Arcata Council meeting would really resonate with my constituents. I think they really want to know that we're making every effort, to listen to their fears. So I do like option one, right? So sending this letter now and then bringing it back to the other jurisdictions. But let's have some comment.
I would agree with that because of the time frame. At least you get the letter there. Right. And then you get the individual ones shows more support. I'm sorry.
I've done that. She dropped 2 feet.
Anyway, essentially I agree with what you're saying.
Does the city have like an ejection button?
The only thing I would say is I believe that was suggestion 3, that you would get the letter to go out from us now and then go around to jurisdictions to have them do either separate letters or sign on to this letter. Is that my understanding?
So option one is we send the letter now.
Oh, okay.
Let's take out option 2 because we're not going to
we
go
don't
with
want
option
option
2.
2.
Okay. So option 1 is we approve the letter. It's signed by our HWMA's chair and we send it off. And then each jurisdiction develops their own letter. Option 2, we sign the letter. Chair signs for HWMA, and HWMA staff develops a sign-on letter for jurisdictions that they approve their support of the letter that was sent by the HWMA board. So the first one is each jurisdiction develops their own letter and approves it and sends it. The second option is HWMA develops a sign-on letter that's approved by each jurisdiction's board, and then we send that after this letter to not delay this letter itself.
Okay, so option 2 then, it sounds like.
Option 1's less staff time. It's the same result in the sense, but option 1 has less staff time involved because we just send them a letter, encourage them to do their own thing.
Oh, I see.
But it's the same result.
I think you switched your
He did.
options.
I did.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
good.
getting,
That was
I'm getting
3.
a little
I
confused
did.
now.
But that's okay. Option 1 is we do the letter, we send it to everybody else, encourage them to do their letter.
I think what I'm getting is the direction is that we authorize the chair to sign the attached letter tonight, and HWMA staff will develop a sign-on letter for jurisdictions to show support of this letter. Is that correct?
That's
I don't
option
think
2.
so. I think that we don't want to take any extra staff time. So I think that what Director Madrone is saying, that we sign this and send it now, and then we bring it back to our jurisdictions and let them either alter the letter or virtually send
Less
the
staff
same-
time.
less staff time. So
Well, it's the city staff time, though. The various cities will have to,
Well, they can just
Have
sign
staff
on.
time.
or they can just,
Send the same letter.
use the same letter, which
Right.
I'm
Okay.
I'm fine.
Right, it'd be streamlined for them too. Yeah.
Letter to the jurisdiction, so they
Correct. Yeah, I will provide. Yeah.
can sign it with the mayor.
Yep.
All right, let's open it up to public comment. Anyone? Okay.
I don't see any hands up.
So for clarity's sake, I won't make it an option. I'll just say that move that we authorize the chair to sign the letter and send it now, then send a copy of that to all the jurisdictions, encourage them to either do the same or do their own. Hopefully that's clear.
I'll second that clear motion.
All right, we have a motion by Director Madrone and a second by Director Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you, staff, HWMA staff, for drafting this letter. It's pretty spot on, so I appreciate that. All right, any standing board member reports?
Just a very quick one, if I might. At one time when Ultra Power was open in Blue Lake, they accepted green waste. Of course, that went away. Corbell, North Fork Lumber, is working on a grant to develop a biomass plant there. And my hope is that if they did that, that might be another source for free green waste drop-off because they would burn it for electricity. It's a ways to go before that happens, but they have the initial grant, George Schmidbauer, to develop the feasibility of doing that. And they need it because they're bringing in all these logs from 100 miles around, all Douglas wood, and then they're hauling their mill waste to Anderson. think about the carbon footprint there, right? So if they want to process it right there, and that could be a real opportunity for another green waste option. Just a piece of information. North Fork Lumber, which is in Corbell, they're leasing the old Simpson mill there for 30 years.
Okay, thank you, Director Madrone. Anybody else have any board reports?
Well, I just learned of something happening in Blue Lake, and I guess there's going to be a large items and tire dump in Blue Lake on October 28th. So we'll be getting information out for our citizens to be a part of that.
All right. Do we have any standing executive directors reports?
Just one item. The board can expect to see the fiscal year 22-23 finalized audit in October. So I'd like to give a big thank you to our new director of finance as well for helping out on that. So the board should expect to have that report from JJ CPAs at the October meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if that is all, it's 5:56 and we can adjourn. Thank you.